Gideon, Babylon, and the curse of the Midianites, part 2. God had a big job for Gideon. God wanted him to save his people from the cruel Midianites, but Gideon was afraid. He wanted proof, so God showed him miracles. Gideon did not like how the Midianites were treating his people, but what could he do? Nothing by himself. He knew he was about to learn that amazing things can be done when God takes command. All he had to do was trust and believe. Flashback, surely I will be with you, and you will defeat the Midianites. The Lord's words that day at the wine spread echoed in Gideon's mind. See Part 1. Volunteers from 4 of the tribes of Israel had answered his call. He watched as they set up camps on the slopes of the Mount Gideon. Their cook fires reminds him of the miracles that followed his first meeting with the Lord. Fire sprung from the rock and burned up the meat and only bread. So Gideon had done what God told him to do. He and his servants had angered local Baal worshippers by tearing down their pagan altars with this desperate image. The Canaanites' God that is no God was powerless before God. Gideon's people viewed him with newfound respect. He was no longer the outsider who refused to worship Baal. Now he was their courageous leader. He was the one who would put an end to the reckless Midianites' oppression. So 32,000 men from the 4 tribes had responded to his call. Now Gideon and his small army would have to prepare to face the enemy. You will be there, won't you? Facing the Midianites hard called for incredible courage and faith. Gideon needed some reassurance that he would not go into battle without God's help. So he hatched a plan. His heart pounding, Gideon said to God, "Please, if you will save Israel by my hand, I need to know for certain that you are with me." He continued, "I'll put a fleece of wool on the threshing floor tonight. In the morning, if the dew is only on it and the ground is dry all around, then I'll believe you." Wet flourished, but if the next morning he hurried to the flourishing floor, to its relief, the fierce was dripping wet. He sprung out a bowl full of water from it, and the surrounding ground was bone dry, just as he asked. At first his confidence soared, but then he began thinking, what if this just happened by chance? What if God had nothing to do with it? Could he trust that God meant what he said? Gideon wanted to make sure. Dry freeze. Drawing a deep breath, Gideon approached God a second time. Please do not be angry with me, but could you do this for me? I'll put a feast in the same place tonight. If in the morning it is dry and the ground is wet with dew, I'll surely know you are with me. God was patient and granted Gideon's request. The next morning the feast was dry, but the ground was soaked with dew. Gideon, his faith strengthened by both miracles from God, got ready to meet the enemy. Assembling the troops, Gideon looked at his small army. There shall have been many more. God looked at the army too, but he said, the people who are with you are too many. He didn't want Israel to think, my own hand has saved me. God said that those who were afraid could leave. Judges chapter 7, 2, 3. So Gideon sent runners throughout the camp. Any who are afraid or fearful, pick up your gear and leave. Hundreds, no thousands, folded their tents and headed for home. Only 10,000 men stayed in the face of army of 135,000. Still too many. Gideon wasn't for another shot. God said the people are still too many. He would tell Gideon who would go with him and who should not go. Verse 4. So Gideon did what God said. He ordered the remaining men to a nearby spring. He watched as his soldiers rushed to drink. Some got on their knees, some with their faces in the water. Others scooped up the water in the hands of leaping and like dogs. Then God told Gideon to separate the two groups. Verse 5. Kneelers go home. Gideon dreadfully separated the leapers from the kneelers. Only 300 lapped from their hands. What now? Gideon wondered. The Lord's next words were shocking. By 300 men who laughed, I will save you and deliver the Midianites into the hand. Let all the other people go. Verse 7. The kneelers, all 97,000 of them, started for home. They were relieved to be excused for what surely appeared to be a no-win battle. The 300 regrouped and waited for orders. Things don't look so good. Gideon could only shake his head. 300 men against all of the Midianites. The enemy looked like a plague of locusts, ready to devour everything in sight. Their war camels were galloping battle machines. They would make short work of his bunny army. God knew Gideon's weakness. Gideon was more troubled by what he saw than strengthened by hearing and believing God's words. By those 300 I will save you and defeat the Midianites. Verse 7. That night God gave Gideon another sign. Into the enemy camp. The Lord's directions rang in his ears. Go into the enemy's camp, for I have delivered it into your hands. If you are afraid, take Lord your army barrier with you. When you hear what they are saying, your faith will be strengthened at the launch of the attack. Verses chapter 9, 11. Gideon and Persia slipped into the Midianites' outpost unseen. They paused beside one of the tents. What they heard told them all they needed to know about the outcome of the battle. One bad dream. There was this miserable loaf of barley bread, and it came trembling into our camp. An accurate voice said it hit a tent so hard that the tent tied sideways and then collapsed. Can you believe it? Knocked down by thread of bread. It was so real. His companion replied, it's the sword of Gideon. God has delivered Midian and this whole camp into his hand. We are sure to be defeated. Gideon greatly encouraged by what he heard, worshipped God. He returned to camp and assembled valid 300. Take your weapons. The next time come, Gideon told his waiting troops, the Lord has delivered the enemy into our hands. I need 3 companies of 100 men each. You will be given a trumpet and an enemy pitcher with a torch inside. Then watch me and do what I do when we come to the Midianites' camp. Gideon and his army waited until the middle of the night. Then they approached the sleeping enemy. The 100 men and Gideon blew their trumpets and broke their pitchers. The other companies followed suit, and Israel surrounded the camp. Their trumpets bared and their torches burned, and they shouted the words of the Lord and of Gideon. Midianite soldiers spilled from their tents. They were disoriented by the sea and torches, surrounding them and terrified by the resounding battle cry. In their confusion, they began attacking anything that moved. The Lord caused the enemy soldiers to kill each other. Those who served fed with Israel in the hot pressure pursuit. True to his word, the Lord had delivered the camp of the Midianites into the hand of Gideon and his army of 300. They did not have to lift a sword. Afterwards, it took some time, but eventually the Midianites' oppression of Israel was broken for good. That part of the story is found in Judges 8. After that, the Bible says the country was quiet for 40 years in the days of Gideon. Judges chapter 8:28. Discussions, questions. 1. Was it a good thing or a bad thing for Gideon to take for signs from God? What are the reasons for your answer? How many times did God perform signs to strengthen Gideon's faith? What did he do? What lessons can we learn from the story of Gideon? Did Gideon ever learn to have faith? Read Hebrews chapter 11:32. To learn more about faith, see what is faith.